Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Greatland Gold Annual General Meeting, and apologies for our short delay in getting started this morning. Throughout this meeting, attendees will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab that's situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. For those online, please just simply type in your question at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so, and we'll make these available to you via the Investor Meet Company dashboard. I'd also like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. I'd now like to hand over to Alex Borrelli, Chairman from Greatland Gold. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning to those dialing in and to those in the room. It's a pleasure to see so many people. In fact, I haven't seen so many people since pre-lockdown, really. So welcome to today. It's now just after 9:30, so I declare the AGM for Greatland Gold this year, 2021, open. We welcome shareholders of the East India Club, and you've got access to the screen here. So welcome to you all, and we have COVID potentially somewhere around London at the moment, so good to see you all wearing your masks, but I think do it in the way that you feel most comfortable. We should really have a bit of social distancing, so I think for the authorities, I assume that we're all socially distanced here. So we have a quorum, and I declare the meeting open. To introduce ourselves, my colleagues do exist, but they exist virtually today. So I'm Alex Borrelli, the non-exec chairman. Sean Day, our CEO, is in Australia on the screen. Will be later. Clive Latcham is a non-exec director, and he is available on the screen. He's UK-based Australian with a illustrious career from Rio Tinto. Paul Hallam has joined us recently on the board, a very experienced mining person, and he's based in Australia. Chris Toon, our CFO, who's joined us on this call with his CFO in Australia. John Janik, our business and finance manager. And I'd like to introduce you to a couple of people in addition. We have Stephen Ronaldson of Druces, who's in the front row here, who's our legal advisor. And we have Joy Mazambi, who's in attendance from share registrars and overseeing the AGM process. So having said that, I'd like to start the formal proceedings. You've all been sent the notice of annual general meeting. So I'd like, that was posted on the 17th of November, and I propose that we move forward, assuming that with your agreement that it is taken as read. And forgive me, I've got to make use of all sorts of devices here. So the main business of the meeting is to run through the resolutions. I think the key interest for you attending today is to hear our CEO. So I'll be relatively quick going through the resolutions, if I may, but you're entitled to ask your questions as we go through them. There are 9 resolutions to be considered today. 1 to 7 are ordinary resolutions, which require a simple majority. Resolutions 8 and 9 relating to this application of preemption rights is fairly standard for companies, will be special resolutions, and they are subject to therefore 75% approval. So, business of the meeting. Resolution 1 is to receive the annual report and accounts for the year ending 30th of June 2021. I hope you've all got a copy. I've got a copy here. If you would like one, it's available on the website, or we can arrange to send you a hard copy. So before I put the resolution of the meeting, are there any questions in relation to this resolution? Therefore, I propose that we consider the resolution 1 for the adoption of the accounts. We have proxy votes in favour of 674,942,640, which is 93.2%, and we have 6.8% against, which is 49 million votes, 339,446. So please, can you raise your hands if you support the resolution? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you. I declare resolution 1 carried. Thank you very much. Resolution 2 relates to the reappointment of myself as the director of the company. Directors have to, under the articles, retire every 3 years. I was elected 3 years ago, or reappointed 3 years ago. So this resolution is concerning my reappointment. For good order, I'm not going to propose that resolution myself, and I will ask Stephen Robinson of Druce's, our legal advisor, to follow through with that resolution.
And Company Secretary for what it's worth. The board is recommending that Alice Pirelli be reappointed as a director. It's necessary for me to ask, does anyone have any questions about the voting question? And secondly, I shall read out the proxy vote, which was 347,213,740 votes in favour and 334,673,960 votes against. That was a vote in favour of 50.9 versus 49.1%. So that is carried according to the proxy vote, but we also need to put it to the floor. Can I please put the vote for those who approve his reappointment and those who vote against his reappointment? That is unanimous. And I now hand back to the chairman.
Thank you, Stephen Robinson. Resolution 3 is regarding the reappointment of Sean Day as a director. He's retiring in accordance with the articles. The board is recommending that Sean Day is reappointed. For putting the resolution to the meeting, does anybody have any questions on this resolution? No questions. So I will give you the proxy voting for that. It's in favour of 719,247,343, which is 99.2% in favour. Sean, you didn't get to 99.9. And against the resolution, 6,027,159. So on the basis of that, all those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? I declare resolution 2 carried, and I welcome Sean Day back to the board of the company to manage the affairs as CEO. Delighted with that. Resolution 4 concerns the reappointment of Paul Hallam. As you're aware, Paul Hallam was appointed during the year, and it's incumbent upon us to seek his reappointment at the first AGM following his appointment. Any questions relating to Paul Hallam? We'd be delighted to answer. And I know the intention of us all is that we can all meet you, hopefully next year. COVID being heavily restricted. Hopefully the board can meet shareholders then. Any questions on Paul? No. I will give you the results of the proxy voting, which is 723,806,505 votes in favour, and of those voting, it's 99.9%. So Paul, nearly 100%. Against the resolution, we have 1,082,997, which is 0.1%. All those in favour of the reappointment of Paul Hallam, please raise your hands. All those against? I declare that resolution carried, and I welcome Paul back to the board of the company as a director. Thank you very much. Resolution 5 is a standard resolution regarding the reappointment of our auditors. Our auditors are PKF Littlejohn. They assume the ownership of our previous auditors, so we do have a level of continuity there. Do we have any questions in relation to that resolution? No. I will give you the proxy voting for that resolution, which is all those in favour, 723,585,319, which is 99.8%. Against the resolution, 1,675,706, which is 0.2%. So for the voting, all those in favour of the reappointment of the auditors, please raise your hands. All those against? I declare the resolution carried. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Resolution 6 is, we've separated out this resolution. Normally the two are combined, but this year together, separately. And we're proposing that directors have the ability to determine the auditor's remuneration. Do we have any questions on this? It's another standard ordinary resolution for an AGM. No questions. The proxy votes in favour, 720,048,486, which is 99.9% of those voting. And against the resolution, 682,269.1%. Please raise your hands to vote in favour. All those against? I declare the resolution carried, and the process will be that the remuneration issues for the auditors will go through the audit committee and thereafter to the board. Resolution 7 is a general authority for the issue of shares. Now, we're very cautious about the issue of shares, and we have no current intention to issue any shares, but this is a relatively standard resolution for the ability for the company to issue shares. Obviously, we are bound by the rules of the Companies Act and also the rules of AIM, so we have to comply with all of those, but we need shareholder approval for the issue of shares. This authority gives us the ability to issue new shares to a nominal value of 1,125 million, which is 1,250,000,000 shares. And that represents 31.5% of the issued share capital. This authority replaces the last authority from the last AGM and will run up to the next AGM or 15 months from now. Do we have any questions on that resolution? Yes, sir.
Is there any way that that authority can be used to facilitate a takeover bid?
Well, a takeover bid would be, depending on the rules we'd have to comply with, subject to shareholder approval if we're issuing shares in relation to that. We don't have the cash to have a takeover that would be financed in that way. This does not give us the ability to raise sufficient cash for a takeover. If we're issuing shares for a takeover, we'd have to go back to shareholders because there wouldn't be sufficient shares. But that is it depends on the size of the business. We have no current intention of following through on this.
Because under the last raise of funds, the board decided to raise some money. Shareholders weren't asked about that, as far as I can remember. You had the authority to do it, but you didn't come back. Now you just said that if this total amount of shares were to be released, you would involve shareholders in the decision.
We have the ability to, first of all, the resolution is a general authority, so we can issue new shares. Then we have a specific authority after that, which is the disapplication preemption rights. This resolution allows us to issue shares on a basis that enables all shareholders to participate. Then there's a separate resolution for the disapplication of that preemption. And we have in place this the special resolution that will follow gives us the ability to raise cash.
Now, to be blunt, what I'm trying to say is, if a large organisation came to you and said, "I'm willing to put X million pounds on the table. Can you give me 1.2 billion shares?" How would that process work?
Well, we're subject to the limits on what we can issue with shares, and we have specific authority. When we go to the special resolution, we'll see that our ability to issue shares is very limited. In fact, I think it's 5% only. So I think in those circumstances that you're concerned about, we'd have to go back to shareholders and put a resolution to them. So these authorities actually are relatively limiting, but this ordinary resolution that gives us the ability to issue shares on a needs must basis, really. And when we raised cash earlier this year, that was through the authorities we had in place at the last AGM, but it was a limited fundraising we facilitated. So I hope that answers the question, but I think the answer for you is that if there is a transaction of size, first of all, we're subject to the AIM rules and we're subject to the authorities that shareholders are granting to us today. So that's the general authority, which is back as resolution 7, and in favour for the proxies 711,153,347 votes, which is 98.5%, against 10,919,000 592, which is 1.5%. And all those in favour of the resolution, please raise your hands. All those against the resolution? Therefore, I declare resolution 7 carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Resolution 8. This gives the directors the ability to issue shares for cash without first offering them to shareholders. This is so-called disapplication of preemption rights. And we have a very limited authority on this. We're proposing a nominal amount of £200,000, which is 5% of the issued share capital of the company. And this is in line with the company's statement of principles, or the statement of principles by the preemption group that was published in March 15. So we're very compliant. We're very conscious that we're comply with good corporate governance on all the matters. As I say, we've got no intention to issue shares, but this provides a degree of flexibility for the company. And it is, again, a relatively standard approach for a listed company to have this ability. So this authority, if it's approved, will expire at the next AGM, or 15 months if the AGM is not taking place in that time. Any questions on this resolution? We had proposed something similar last year. The proxy votes in favour, 705,015,537, which is 98.4%. Against the resolutions, 11,756,418 votes, 1.6%. So if you can raise your hands, all those in favour, all those against. Thank you. Majority there, over 75%. So I declare the resolution carried. Thank you very much. And the final resolution is resolution 9, which again is the giving us the specific ability to allot shares for an acquisition of a specified capital investment as defined in the statement of principles. I think we're happy to let you see a copy of that and give you some sort of background of what we're doing. So this is a further 5% authority that we're seeking, and it is a nominal amount of £200,000. Again, it expires at the next AGM or within 15 months. And the directors, we confirm our intention to follow the provisions of the statement of principles regarding cumulative usage of the disapplication authorities, which limits us to 7.5% in a 3-year period. It's not as if you've got a rolling authority we can use. So we take it up to 7.5% to cover the 3 years. The proxy votes in favour, 707,590,547, which is 98.6%. Against the resolution, we have 9,733,218, which is 1.4%. All those, I've put the resolution of the meeting. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? We have an overwhelming majority in favour. I declare resolution 9 carried. So thank you very much for that. The meeting is virtually closed now. I think I'll just get a nod from our lawyer and registrar. I don't think there's anything further we need to cover in the meeting. I will be followed by Sean Day, who will give a presentation. The results of the meeting will be up on the RIS, Regulatory Information Service, with RNS, the news service. I wish you all excellent health and no COVID and a very good new year. If you're a shareholder over a period of time, I'm pleased that you will have made significant gains by investing in Greatland Gold. And we look forward to your continuity as a shareholder in the company. I just want to make a comment. The resolution in relation to myself, whereas most of the voting is over 93%, a number of the votes were cast against my re-election, and we understand that is not for me personally. Otherwise, I might take it too personally. But the proxy advisors give their recommendations through various voting forum to say that directors who are non-executive are not considered independent if they hold options. In the early days of Greatland Gold, obviously, we had financed the remuneration for the directors through the issue of options, which saved the company cash and enabled us to stay together as a board. but the proxy voting measures today do not favour non-execs holding options, which is disappointing. Therefore, we've had effectively a protest vote against that. So I'd like you to understand that position when you see the announcement. What we will be announcing, and I'd make the statement that we consider that the non-executive directors are all independent in both judgment and character. The success of the company is and has been dependent upon a strong board and the executive management team for their vast sectoral expertise to run a company like Greatland Gold and its continued growth as a development and mining company. The board has approved the adoption of the QCA code as its governance framework against which it is reported and will continue to monitor its suitability on an annual basis and revise its governance framework as appropriate as the company evolves. Furthermore, the board considers it is compliant with the code's requirement for independence. We're disappointed to receive the voting as it was for the independent Jones reappointment, but that is the nature of voting instructions today from the proxy advisors. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've had enough of me. I will pass you over to Sean Day to give you the meat on the bone, really. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Alex, and welcome everyone to the AGM. Just before I start, I'll just clarify something on the chat, which I wasn't able to seemingly reply to, which was just there is a typo in Resolution 7 with an additional rogue 0. That is just that, a typo. The formal notice of meeting has the correct number with only 3 zeros after the last comma. Just to formally confirm that for those on the chat. I'm going to do a short presentation. We have got a number of questions come through, and my sense is people enjoy that Q&A interaction. So I'll give a quick overview, and then we'll seek to move through a Q&A. Just to begin with, it's been a year full of activity at Greatland and indeed our Havieron asset. The key aspects of this is actually commencement of development of Havieron. So the box cut went in, that then we had the formal opening ceremony, and of course now we're underway with the decline development, which is a magnificent milestone for the company. And it's great to see what we all believe is a world-class ore body that ourselves together with Newcrest have the conviction to go ahead and advance the development. During the year, we also had our first study, the Pre-Feasibility Study. That's really just focused on that southeast crescent. It does show you that the capex to put into production is very reasonable for Greatland and achievable. And then secondly, the low-cost nature of Havieron. We would become, based on that pre-feasibility study, the second lowest cost gold miner on the planet, which is extraordinary and goes to the quality of Havieron. When I think about the year here, one of my primary objectives for the year, and something I'm particularly proud of, is the build-up of the team. It's been, in some ways, a year of transition as we've moved from from explorer to developer, and ultimately with a goal of being a mining company. And what we've done with that is develop the team to let us make that transition. We've evolved from having a very strong geology team, augmenting that team, but also adding mining engineering capacity and indeed processing, so we can understand the full range of activity around the development of Havieron. We've augmented that together with the resource geologists and those other teams around generation to give ourselves the best opportunity at developing and unlocking option value from that exploration portfolio. And in addition to that, we've matured the capability of the organisation in terms of finance, and commercial, appointing a CFO and others, and really the team that we have, I think is extraordinary for a company of this size at this stage of the development. As many of you would appreciate, getting top-end mining talent in Australia right now is incredibly competitive. And I think it's a testament to Greatland, and I think a great testament to the quality of our asset, of the calibre of people it attracts, and people are attracted at potentially working on what we think could be a multi-decade opportunity at Havieron. In terms of the strategy, I think it's always good to revisit this and think about Greatland's future trajectory in terms of this strategy. Again, we want to focus and deliver Havieron on time, on budget, for the benefit of all shareholders. We want to continue to invest in the drill bit and unlock that option value. We think we have some tremendous exploration ground within the portfolio. We also are working on getting access to some new areas, such as Ernst Henry, which again, I think gives us an opportunity to accelerate exploration, and very optimistic about what that can deliver. And then finally, of course, we also want to be disciplined managers of our portfolio. And with that, look to leverage the base we have, both to make sure we optimize our portfolio for assets that we think can become the next Havieron, but equally, where possible, to look to that sense, Giles, but also to where possible to look to leverage the broader base. Just turning to Havieron itself, I appreciate this is a busy diagram to the right of our screens, but look, this subvertical ore body, this is looking down at it in plan view, but it's a tremendous ore body right now. Really, we've been very focused on this southeast crescent. That's what that original pre-feasibility study focused on, and hopefully that gives you a sense that there's still some 3/4 of this ore body, together with the opportunity at that eastern breccia, still to be brought into the mine plan. And even within that southeast crescent, it's only a fraction of that part of that high-grade backbone to the ore body. So you don't need a lot of an imagination to start thinking about what Havieron looks like when you take it down the entire expanse of that southeast crescent, and then when you open it up to the broader bulk mining opportunity across the greater Havieron. And that's why we attract the interest of a Newcrest as a major to want to be part of this development. I think we have a number of really important catalysts for value in the year ahead. We'll come out with our inaugural sustainability report. That's really important to the values we have as a team at Greatland, but also I think increasingly gets traction in the market. We have the JORC resource update that we continue to work on. We aspire to be fully funded. We obviously have in place some cash now, and in addition to that, the facility with Newcrest. But at some point, we want to be able to be fully funded for this development of the southeast crescent. And again, we're engaging with the market now, particularly around banks. And in terms of that, we did raise some equity earlier. Again, I think you should understand that, or appreciate that, having a cash balance is not, instead of bringing in finance, bank finance, it actually augments and improves our ability to do that. Just like buying a house or buying a car, it's rare the bank will lend you 100%. It's good to have a cash balance and some liquidity to sit next to that debt profile as well. The growth drilling, 90,000 meters of growth drilling is planned. That just gives us a huge opportunity to further understand and keep adding value to Havieron. And remember, in the 230,000 odd meters that we've drilled into this ore body, we are yet to have a drill hole that hasn't intercepted mineralization. That is extraordinary, and that gives us a huge amount of confidence about what we're going to continue to unlock and define to create value for shareholders from that growth drilling program. The feasibility study we expect in the second half of next year. Again, the pre-feasibility study was 2 million tonnes a year. This will take us to a 3 million tonne per annum study. So again, we've increased it by 50%. So again, I think that has a good opportunity, together with leveraging the additional drilling that's been undertaken, to create value. The bulk mining, again, three quarters of this ore body is potentially kind of lends itself into that bulk mine. And again, if you listen to the Newcrest discussions, and indeed our own, we ultimately see this being a continuation of this southeast crescent sub-level open stoping, but a bulk mine potentially operating next door to that. One mine, two mining methodologies. Discovery continues to be a focus for us. Again, we feel we're better placed to be able to maintain that program outside of Havieron with the cash balance within Greatland Corporate itself. And again, the option value in that portfolio, some of the ground we hold, we think is outstanding. And we want to give ourselves every opportunity to unlock that value for shareholders. And then finally, of course, we've got the decline progressing. Just to remind people around this, we're moving through the Permian area. There's about 400 metres of cover before you get down to the country rock. That Permian is relatively soft. Intuitively, you might think we can chew through that quickly, but actually the harder the rock competency, the bigger cuts you can take each time in that sequence of cut, draw out, and truck to surface. So during this, so it's always been planned that it would be relatively slow progress to start with as we move through the softer levels of that Permian. As we get deeper through that Permian, which has been under more time and compression, you can slowly expand those widths, and then ultimately you get down to the country rock, which is beautiful mining conditions. Look, sustainability, I mentioned before about the inaugural sustainability report. We also want to be engaging increasingly with ESG funds. We think it's an extraordinary opportunity from an ESG perspective. We are gold and copper, and I think there's no better way to participate in this whole EV cycle than through copper. But additionally to that, we are leveraging existing infrastructure. There is no giant plant spend. We are leveraging so much of the existing infrastructure that reduces our carbon footprint and ultimately makes our life of mine material or metal more ESG friendly. And I think that's a big competitive advantage for us as we go through that ESG process. Look, this is just reminding ourselves around Havieron itself. Look, it is an absolutely world-class discovery in a tier 1 jurisdiction. We have this close proximity to existing processing capacity, and not just processing capacity. It's the bitumen airstrip, it's the camp, it's the stores, it's the critical supplies, and perhaps most importantly, the 1,200 people in situ, each with up to 35 years operating experience out there in the Paterson. That's a wonderful asset. And again, one of the reasons that we want to get Havieron into production late 23, early 24. So there is no gap here. There is no demobilisation of Telfer. Newcrest wants to keep those people in situ, and Greatland is just as keen for that to happen. And then to the right of our screen is just the ore body itself. That really highlights that southeast crescent. Again, if it comes across on your screen, that dark red is the stopes that are actually baked into that pre-feasibility study. The rest of that pink material is all southeast crescent, circa 5 gram material sitting next to infrastructure. It's typically been drilled to about 75 metre drill widths. It needs to be 45 metres for us to bring it into the reserve. As we continue to the infill drilling, we bring more of that material into reserve category and can bring that into the next study. But 5 gram material sitting next to infrastructure, you should have a high degree of confidence that all comes into the material. And I think this visually shows the growth that you've got just on this southeast crescent alone. And remember, at depth, we're actually seeing slightly better grades, slightly better widths at the southeast crescent. So it behaves at depth. To the far right of screen is that ounce profile per vertical metre. That is extraordinary to be sitting above 8,500 ounces per vertical metre. It will continue to expand as we bring in more across the full zonation. But you see it does tail in. That's only a function of the density of drilling. As we continue to drill, our expectation is we'll continue to push out that ounces per vertical metre. And what that means, and why mining engineers love to follow that so closely for underground mining, is it goes to the efficiency of the infrastructure. How many ounces per metre of vertical advancement can we extract from this mine? And again, laterally, this is actually quite a compact ore body, kind of a 650, 750 metre mining width. Again, we're not talking about these ounces being over a 3 or 4 kilometre mining width. The potential efficiency, which goes to the all-in sustaining cost, is exceptional at Havieron. And then this dovetails to this all-in sustaining cost. I mentioned before, we will be the second lowest cost, all-in sustaining cost gold miner on the planet, behind the Russians' Polyus. Again, it just talks to the quality of the ore body, which is this confluence of factors, including the ounces per vertical metre, the grade, and the opportunity to mine it in a reasonably bulk methodology. The capex itself, again, we mentioned about a $73 million hurdle. That's very manageable for us. It's something that we're focused on. And again, if we can augment that with some bank debt, it gives us the opportunity to minimise any future dilution we need. So again, just as we kind of head towards the Q&A, the overall exploration portfolio at Greatland, we think is exciting. Of course, the Patterson is a huge focus for us during the year. We substantially increased our holdings in the Patterson, which we think, again, gives us more opportunity to unlock value. During the year, we've spent a lot of time on access with First Nations people into Panorama, into Ernst Giles. And again, we're hopeful we'll have full access into those areas in the new year, and we can undertake some drilling programs. All of them are interesting to us, but I think Ernst Giles is a particularly unique opportunity to have an underexplored Archean greenstone in the portfolio is brilliant. And a lot of the West Australian gold discoveries are associated with Archean greenstones. If you think the Super Pit or the Kalgoorlie region, those are Archean greenstones. So lovely to have that kind of opportunity and option value within the portfolio. So with that, I'm keen to step across into the Q&A.
That's great, Sean. Thank you very much indeed. Obviously, we've got the attendees in London, and you've got many questions that are coming on the Q&A tab. I don't know whether it might be best to hand back to Alex first, just to see if there's any questions from the room, or whether you'd like to take the online ones first. So,
yes, let me just see from the room. It's not the greatest sound, I have to say, because we've only got the speaker from the laptop. So our apologies to the attendees here. But does anybody in the room have any questions? I think they'll follow through with questions as they emerge from the dialogue you've got with the online questions.
No problem.
We need to ask questions as we go through, but over to you, Mark and Sean, for the online questions.
We have no shortage of online questions, so I'm sure that will keep us busy.
That's perfect then, Sean. If I could just hand back to you to read out these. Well, in fact, if I may, I'll probably start off with the questions. You did receive some pre-submitted questions, Sean, which I believe you should have in front of you. But Let me just bring those up, and I will start off the Q&A with the pre-submitted questions that we received from investors online. So thank you firstly to all those investors that did, and shareholders that took time to submit those questions. Right, so without further ado, let me start here at the top. Question number 1 reads as follows: are there any plans to move from AIM to the main market or have a dual list on the New York Stock Exchange?
Yeah, look, I think AIM's been a really successful market for us. We're delighted with the shareholder base that we've developed and continue to grow. In terms of how the company evolves in the future, I think that there is an opportunity to continue to assess what is the right exchange, where do we have the best access to capital. But so the LSE potentially is something that we mature to at some point. And it's something the board does spend time considering. Equally, we enjoy being UK listed, but ultimately part of the responsibility of the board is to assess exchanges around the world, including New York. But I think for now, we're really satisfied with the traction we're getting in the London market. Although we've had a little bit of share price fall in recent months, notwithstanding some excellent news coming out from the site. So look, we're really conscious that if we don't continue to grow our share price, if we don't continue to get that narrative, to get traction in the market, to understand the full potential and value of Havron, at some point, there's a grave risk that a takeover bid will come and someone else will take that value and develop our asset for us. So for us, it's really important to build the share price and continue to build the share price as we continue to get great information coming out of Havron, and its value is better understood, and translate that into a strong share price.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Turning on to the next question, is it possible to give a best practice estimate for the completion of the decline? So far, we know CY23, but that's a 12-month window. I was hoping that based on the progress up to the date of the AGM, we could get a tighter window, and that's from Terry Baptist.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Terry. Look, I think you should be thinking about that as the second half of calendar 23. I think someone did ask me last week whether I thought we'd get an into production before Christmas 22. I had to say that'd be really ambitious, but I think we're really looking at a late calendar 23. With the central goal here is to get it into production, to have ounces through that mill in early calendar year 24, so that there's no risk of a demobilisation of Telfer. So that's really what we're focused on, and we believe that's achievable.
Thank you very much indeed, Sean. Next question reads as follows. In the 18th of November fundraise, the RNS states that net proceeds are earmarked to fast-track development Havron and explore the wider system, accelerate expiration on a wholly owned tenement, and pay costs associated with working capital and general corporate purposes. Can you provide details on these areas, please?
Yeah, look, it's a somewhat broad definition, isn't it? But really, look, when we think about how Greatland is funded, we have this $50 million US facility with Newcrest that really gives us runway through much of the course of calendar year 22 for our Havron commitments to be funded as part of that facility. We can't draw down, and nor would we want to cannibalise some of that facility for other purposes. We want those for our investment into Havron and to deliver Havron. The additional funds that we have from the equity raise, and remember our cash balance was around £3 million at the point of doing that raising. So that is an extraordinary low cash balance for a company of our size. That what the equity raise does is gives us a cash balance so we can pursue those non-Havron activity, which is unlocking the value within that exploration portfolio. We believe in spinning the drill bit. That's how we found Havron. We're in elephant country. We want to continue to run those opportunities to ground. And equally, it also the working capital aspects we have built a team. I've talked about building a team. Again, building that team helps us understand Havron. It helps us review in a peer sense with Newcrest the information they're doing, and indeed scrutinise it. And I think, again, if we're going to be a good owner of Havron, we need to invest in the team to make sure we optimise it for Greatland shareholders.
Thank you, Sean. If I can turn to a question that we've received from Nicholas T. Thank you, Nicholas. His question reads as follows. Good evening, Sean. In the interview with Proactive last week, you briefly mentioned Scallywag and the growth drilling at the northwest of the main ore body at Havron. Can you please expand on that?
Yeah, look, there is some drilling. A couple of rigs are stepping outside of Havron, still on the mining lease, but looking at the Hav North, the Zipper opportunities. Look, as Greatland's concerned, we're incredibly optimistic about that. The best place to look for gold is where gold's already been found. There's typically a northwest trend through the Patterson region. Our Scallywag sits to the northwest, but hitting some of those anomalies, which are still on the Havron mining lease, but slightly to the north of Havron proper, give us tremendous option value, tremendous opportunity to be successful. Clearly, Newcrest are equally interested in those targets. They represent genuine opportunities, and those opportunities continue to flow onto our Scallywag target. So, it's a systematic process. The area is undercover. We don't believe in pattern drilling and spending a huge amount of exploration dollars up front. We believe in drilling a hole, understanding that, reflecting on it, recalibrating our understanding of the region, and then going back in. It's very much exploration built up from first principles and careful analysis. But we think over time that is the best way to create value for shareholders.
Thank you, Sean. There are a number of questions from a number of different investors on the call today relating to share price. And as opposed to reading each and every one out, one of the questions I think summarizes it is, why is the share price down so much despite the good news flow? I don't know if you can give any kind of comment around share price, but that would address probably quite a few questions today.
Yeah, look. As a management team, we really focus on the factors that we can control, and to some extent, that's not always the share price. But what we can control is the activity that we do as a team. We like to think we've continued to put out some good news into the market. I think the Havron results have been nothing less than stunning. I do recall the share price dropped a bit on the last couple of exploration updates, notwithstanding. I think the one before was 120 meters at 10 grams, 0.66 copper. So hard to see what could have been more impressive than that. And again, in the most recent one, drilling under the southeast crescent, showing extension for another 250 meters on that high grade backbone. These are extraordinary outcomes. They go to creating value for shareholders. We want to continue to engage and do the best job we can at articulating that message, getting that narrative across. But again, at some point, the hammer will fall, and shareholders might receive a premium if we get taken over. But I think to sell it at this point in the cycle, before we fully understand the full value of Havron, I think it's a decision we could, or an outcome we might regret at leisure over many decades. That is the potential of this Havron development. So look, that's the challenge for management. It's very much a challenge for me. It's something I'm acutely aware of. We're focused on delivering shareholder value, and we'll continue to put time, energy, and effort to that. And I am pleased to say I can get up to London come the March quarter. So hopefully getting in front of people as well is all part of adding to that opportunity. I might just add though as well, one of the earlier slides was those catalysts for value in the new year. I think the resource upgrade, sustainability report, the funding program, all of those should give people a lot of confidence that you have in place the team that can drive value and give events that the market can recognise as delivering value.
Thank you very much indeed. Turning a question from Adam J. Thank you, Adam. How confident are you that you could defend, say, a bid at 30p from Newcrest?
Oh, Adam, that's a great question. That of course, any takeover bid, is something that the board would have to consider in terms of value. Again, one of the great benefits of us building the team, having mining engineering, having process skills, is that we understand the value of our asset better and better. That's again some processes that we go through internally. The updated resource and reserve report is also another factor in understanding our asset better. So look, I think the value of Havieron is incredibly substantial. You go through your entire career in mining looking for world-class ore bodies in tier 1 locations, and the fact that we have the additional confluence, that it's sitting next to infrastructure, and we have a global major operating and being the manager with us and further decreasing risk, and having the rooms full of mining engineers, Indigenous engagement, environmental permitting people that they can deploy to this asset. We have an extraordinary low risk, low capex pathway to free cash flow, and potentially a multi-decade mine here. I think the value is extraordinary, and I think over time we can continue to communicate that and create that value.
Thank you very much indeed, Sean. A couple of questions about assay results. Michael D asks, when can shareholders expect to see what assay results from the jury JV that were expected in early November?
Michael, look, assay results haven't really come in. There has been some expansion of assay lab infrastructure in Australia, and particularly in Western Australia. That was envisaged that it would start walking times down. We haven't really seen that, unfortunately. We saw a little bit come in, and it's probably walked out a little bit again now. Having said that, we are just starting to get some results through. Obviously, they need to be processed and reviewed. We also did an EM survey up on some of the jury scallywag ground as well. There's quite a long tail of interpretation on that, but that's going to be coming through shortly too. So we are getting into a little bit of the Christmas period, but would like to get that out, when it's all in, hopefully in weeks, certainly not months. So if not late this year, which is probably unlikely, but certainly very early in the new year. So it is starting to drift in. It is a bit of a slow burn. Believe me, we would love it to be quicker, and we have some very impatient geologists wandering around the office just now.
That's perfect. Thank you, Sean. I'm mindful that we're coming up to the hour. Just want to check that you're still happy to carry on. I'm mindful of the time difference as well. And what I might do is just liaise with Alex just while you just take a few more moments to look at some of the questions. But are you happy just to carry on for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm
perfect.
Very pleased.
Perfect. Well, let me just open the line to Alex, and apologies for if you're having any issues on the sound there, guys. But Alex, can I just hand back? Is there anything that I could take from the room at all for Sean?
Yes. Let me just say, if anyone is having difficulty hearing, we're a bit late to say it, but come nearer the laptop, please. But otherwise, does anybody have any other supplementary questions to put to Sean or any of the team? I think it's a world-class asset that we've got.
Perfect. Well, let me carry on if I may. Then I'll just turn the microphone off there in the London venue. And Sean, maybe I can just come back to you with some of these questions that are coming in. Matt T asks, can you provide any indication of the likely magnitude of the resource upgrade and when we can expect it to be released?
Look, I think it would be I have to be measured in terms of starting to front run announcements. Look, we think about getting that out in the March quarter last year. I think previously Newcrest had indicated a December to February time. I think they will come out with their updated resource in February. we'd like that to be aligned. So we'll continue to liaise with them around that alignment.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Question here from Gary M. Thank you very much indeed, Gary. Gary's question is as follows. Do you anticipate a trigger event that will promote more institutional investors coming on board?
Gary, thanks for the question. Look, I think these things are multifactorial. Throughout the course of 2021, we've really started to engage with institutional investors. I think often with these groups, you've got to have multiple meetings. They want to hear from you several times, and indeed they want to see that you deliver the operational goals that you articulate you're going to deliver. I think during the course of this year, in that regard, we've built credibility with those names. We've seen, in the most recent equity raise, I think it was some 20 institutional investors came in or new to the register. Now, some of them took relatively measured parcels, but it's all about them kind of building confidence and building engagement with the company. Again, look, I did go through those catalysts, so I don't want to get too repetitive here, but I think the ESG report is really important for institutional investors. I think seeing that updated resource reserve, the fully funded or the bank financing is a really important event. And then even the fact that I can get up to London and meet people face to face. Look, online's good, but we all still probably appreciate getting in front of people one-on-one. So I think all those are important catalysts in the first half of next year. And all of those are in parallel with 90,000 metres of growth drilling and these continued exploration updates. And every geologist, every mining engineer, every person watching those updates, I think just grows in confidence about the opportunity at Havieron.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Question from David B. I think I'll hand it to you just because it's here, but can Greatland Gold be taken over without PI, private investors, I guess, approval? I think the answer to that is.
Well, the answer is no. Look, fundamentally, if a takeover bid was received and the board thought it warranted being put to shareholders, it would ultimately be in the hands of shareholders. It would have to be I think a compelling bid. I've talked before. This is a unique ore body with a unique pathway to or low risk pathway to free cash flow. Ultimately, someone's asked about, or I think a few people asked about share price before. Ultimately, it's the shareholders that determine these, and it's the shareholders that determine bid outcomes. But my gosh, I think we'd want to extract a premium for an asset of this quality.
That's great, and I think maybe obviously because the questions are coming, we'll make all these questions available to you post the meeting as well. If there's anything that we haven't touched on either through the presentation or through the Q&A, but I guess maybe a good question to finish it on is that, Sean, do you think the share price is undervalued?
Oh, look, I think anytime you ask a company whether their share price is undervalued, but yes, look, again, it just comes down to this is a tremendous ore body, and to have it in a tier 1 jurisdiction next to infrastructure, I risk repeating myself, but it is globally unique. It is hard to see an asset of this quality in a jurisdiction like this with this quick pathway to production. We expect to be in free cash flow in calendar 2024. This is for a discovery in 2019. Literally in 2019, 2 years later, we've started developing it. That is unusual. The typical time frame to development of an asset in Australia is around 10 years. Again, this just talks to the quality of Havieron. It certainly talks to the conviction that we had as Greatland, that we were willing to support putting this into production early. I can't speak for Newcrest, but perhaps it talks to their conviction about the quality of this asset as well. it's a unique proposition, and shareholders of Greatland should be popping champagne corks every day about the quality of this ore body and the fact that it just consistently and predictably continues to deliver for us.
That's great, Sean, and thank you very much indeed for your presentation, and indeed for your time for the Q&A. Perhaps it may be an opportune time, if I may hand back to Alex in the East India Club just to wrap up with, and then what I'll do is for all those attendees online, I'll redirect them in order that they can provide you with their thoughts, views and expectations. So Alex, if I may just hand back to you, sir, to close.
Thank you, Mark. I just picking up on a couple of points there. One is the share price, and the other is a takeover. To a certain extent, they're related. We do have analyst reports on the valuation of Greatland in the market at the moment, and I think the expectations of the share price should be around the mid-20s and above. So that gives a marker on that. And secondly, if there is a takeover approach, there is a formal process that is adopted, although it's not subject to shareholder approval. A form of acceptance will go to shareholders from an offeror, but the offeror would seek to have a board recommendation, and it's incumbent upon us to have a valuation report on the company. So we would go through the motions of being totally considered on the value of any offer that's received. But of course, we're not in that position at all at this stage. Otherwise, I'm very grateful to people for attending. I'm conscious of COVID restrictions, and yet we have pretty much a full room here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending, and we look forward to seeing you next year. And hopefully online, some of you will be able to attend and meet the team in person as well. But thank you to all.
That's great. Thank you once again to the board of Greatland Gold for broadcasting their annual general meeting to way over 500 investors on the call today. Could I please ask attendees please not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order the management team can understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the board of Greatland Gold, we'd like to thank you for attending today's annual general meeting. Good morning to you all.